Away.
I'll take it away.
Entering November, what areas do you want to see this offense maybe improve or clean some things up?
There's always execution items. I mean, you're always going to look to strive to improve that way. And the message kind of the last month for our guys was we got to provide some consistency. And I think we improved in that area, but there's always going to be room for improvement. So we know we got a great challenge ahead this week and down here, down the stretch of our season. Our guys are excited for that, but there's a lot of execution items that we need to improve on if we want to get to where we want to be.
On the offensive line, with Colin and Harris kind of back, help be rotating in. What have you kind of liked about that? Because I feel like Harris has maybe gotten in a little bit more the last few weeks, kind of early quarters, stuff like that.
Yeah, Harris has done a great job for us of, being an important piece of that front and a person that's versatile, could play center, could play inside at guard, obviously. But I've been very pleased with him and what he's given us as far as depth and taking a load off of Walker Parks at times. It's been good for us. So, I think he's improving quickly and has really given us a shot in the arm up front.
With running back with the depth there, what's your sort of ideal moving forward, 16, possibly 17 game season of what you would like to see behind Phil sort of materialize there? Yeah,
I mean, those the Jay and Hammerhead, Keith, obviously are a big part of our offense because they're important. That depth piece, as you mentioned, and like I've said all along, I mean, we know we have a workhorse with Phil, but just that position by nature, you're going to have to do it by committee, right? And so, all those guys are different. They all have different skill sets. Well, there's a lot of confidence in Jay and Keith and what they've done so far, and we just got to continue to give them opportunities and mix them up from a rep standpoint. But they're certainly critical to our success down the road. There's no question about it.
What's the pace of progression been like for you guys throughout this season? Like, do you feel like every week it's you're able to add a little bit more for everybody, or what's that been like as you guys have navigated this season?
I mean, in terms of what we install or what we're putting on their plate, I don't know if I'd say it's a whole lot more each week. I mean, like anything, when you're doing some things well, or you feel like you are, that kind of opens the doors probably for a little bit more here and there. But I think the biggest thing is just continue to get really, really good at what we do, and that's gonna create confidence. And in those moments, those key moments in games where it's a tight game or whatever, that's what you're always going to rely on. And so, if our players are confident in that part of it, then we're going to tend to feel pretty good about that as coaches. So as far as putting a lot more on their plate, I wouldn't say it's a ton more. It's just trying to get better and better at what we do.
How have Wesco and Moore kind of advanced from week one to now, what you say is true freshman?
Yeah, I mean, a lot. I mean, especially as we talked about with TJ, just trying to expedite his process as he got here later than Wesco. But, from a mental standpoint, they've really, really improved. There's buy-in from those guys. We all know that. There's no question about that. And they've proven that they're able to handle, the ups and downs that come along with this game, the coaching, the getting challenged, all these things that kind of go on that you don't always see as fans or whatever. Like, those guys are approaching it the right way. And the good thing is they got a room that you have Antonio and Adam and Cole and guys that have been around a little bit now that they can kind of look to that way. So I think they're getting good leadership just from the other guys in that room, and along with Coach Grisham and what he's done to develop that room.
You were getting the question last season, or hearing the criticism, this offense doesn't look like the offense I saw at TCU, like schematically.
I mean, I remember hearing some of it, yeah.
What was your response then, and how did it kind of make you chuckle now?
I mean, I just know every team's different. It's always going to be driven on personnel and what you got, and trying to position your team to be successful and have a chance to win a football game. And so we were a lot different at most of the time last year from a personnel standpoint. We had to do what we had to do to have a chance to win, and that'll always stay the same. This team will probably be a lot different next year. You know, I mean, just that's always going to be the same with football, and I think it always starts there with what you have.
Winning and scoring obviously drive that meter of success, but are there things that you look at when you're leaving a game, when you're watching the film, that you're looking for or looking at that are maybe better metrics for what you're big picture trying to do?
Say it again. See if I can kind of follow you a little bit better.
What are some of those things outside of obviously winning and scoring that you're looking at when you're going back and looking through to determine, are you guys making the progress you want? Is this setting you guys up for the long-term success you're looking for?
That's a good question. I mean, there's always a lot of things. I think, you know, how efficient are you? I mean, there's, you know, listen, we all love big plays, and those are huge with this game and determining wins and losses. Like, that's always one of the bigger ones that you're going to look at. But also the efficiency, the as coaches, are we putting our guys in the best position? Are we kind of putting them in a bad spot at times? You know, I think all of those things you're always trying to have some checks and balances on as you go through it. And like I said, I think if you do that well throughout the season, then hopefully you're positioning yourself well to be playing your best at the right time of the year. And that's always how we're going to drive this thing.
Is it remarkable to you how much better Cade is using his legs than last year? I mean, obviously people improve, but he looks like a totally different presence back there as he's...
Yeah, I mean, he's matured. He's matured, and you know, like I've said, most of this year is we're a lot better around him too. You know, everything works together. It always does, and protection and running game and receivers making plays, one-on-one plays, like all of it works together. And so when things are kind of working at a higher rate, then those opportunities probably come about a little bit more too. You know, but just with him specifically, there's no question he's matured. He still has another level that he can go to. There's no doubt about it. But he's been a huge part with his legs the last few weeks, extending plays, some third down conversions, things like that have been, I mean, just absolutely critical for some of the success we've had in the last couple of weeks.
So what does that other level look like for him? Like, what are points of focus?
I mean, still just doing things even more consistently. I mean, and as a quarterback, you're never going to probably master that, right? I mean, that's one of those things you're always going to chase, and chasing excellence from a position standpoint. But, you know, just things from a routine read standpoint, you know, still with his feet at times. You know, there's always going to be things to work on, but he's a very talented and driven person. And so we're always going to challenge and push him because that's what he needs, and that's what he wants. And that's what the great ones need.
His growth that he's taken this year, is that one of the biggest catalysts in the improvement we've seen from last year to this year in the offense overall?
I mean, anytime your quarterback's playing pretty well, it's going to be a big catalyst. There's no doubt about it. And you know, like I said, I want to take away from Cade because he's done a lot behind the scenes, and like we kind of said last year is you got to go through the fire at times, and that's how you really learn. That's how you really gain experience, good or bad. And you know, he's approached it the right way. So, you know, very proud of him that way. And like I said, anytime your quarterback's playing well, it's probably going to be a pretty big catalyst for your team.
You talked about it coming into the year, just his footwork being an on-commer. How important is that for a quarterback, just having that consistent base? Like, how does it actually manifest itself when they have that base to be able to make throws?
Yeah, it's crucial. I mean, it all starts there. I mean, anytime if I'm teaching a 5-year-old kid how to throw a football right now, I mean, it's going to start there, right? So that's just always the fundamental piece of it. And it's different. It's harder when there's live bullets going on, right? And you got a real rush, and maybe things aren't going well up front or whatever it may be. You got to still rely on that in the heat of the moment. And so that's what he's learning to do at a higher rate, you know, this season so far.
Coach, asking on behalf of someone who had to step out, how imperative is patience and development for a quarterback, and has the proliferation of 6th and 7th year guys, older guys around the country, kind of skewed the perspective of that development curve?
I think it's monumental, you know, especially at that position. You've got to have patience, you know, and there's certainly a time and the fine line of when you got to make a change or whatever, wherever you're at, college, NFL, whatever it may be. But in my experience, with just where I've been and the quarterbacks that I've been around, I think the more patient you are, I think you're going to pay the dividends for that later on, kind of reap the benefits of it in the long run. So I think that's a critical piece that it's hard for coaches to do at times when maybe things aren't going well. But I think it says a lot about us, a lot about Coach Sweeney and the way he operates, that we're certainly at a place that believes in that, truly believes in it, at the quarterback position, but at any position.
When you're a quarterback who does go through struggles, I mean, even back to TCU, I mean, Max didn't even win the starting job coming out of camp that year. How do you kind of keep their head right and not let the outside stuff get to them?
I would say you got to be consistent in your approach as a coach, with that position room. And no matter if it's going good or bad, I feel like that's probably one of my strengths, and maybe a strength to a fault almost, but I'm going to be the same guy. And so I just think the consistency in our daily approach of that quarterback room, the messaging, just all of it, whether you're the starter, whether you're the fourth-string kid, like it's all the same. And I think there's probably some comfort with that as a player, and I think that hopefully just down the road that builds confidence within that room. So that's probably what I would attribute it from my end. I think it kind of goes back to that.
Sorry if this was asked too earlier, but Cade was saying he wants to treat anything inside 15 yards like a handoff, basically. Like it should be simple and routine. When did you see that sort of start to click where that was the case? Like everything, the easy stuff all became routine?
I mean, I saw a big jump once we got to fall camp this year. I thought he had a really, really good spring, but once we kind of got in the meat of fall camp, like I started to see that. That was kind of my huge message to him in terms of throwing the ball and just decision-making, routine decision-making at the quarterback position is we got to be automatic. Like you're a very talented player, you're smart, you're driven. Like that's what we expect at that position, obviously from you, but our whole room. CV, Pyramid, all those guys. Like that's what I expect of them, and that's what our team expects. So just that's where he's got to be automatic, and he's certainly improved quite a bit in that area, but still has another level, I think.
Was that? I mean, some of the struggles last year were really just bad decision in the worst possible moment with him. Was some of that just overthinking and not simplifying exactly what you're talking about, like not making the easy things easy?
Yeah, at times. I mean, there's certain different stages of our season last year where some of those things kind of happened, right? The thing with Cade in particular is just a kid that's a ball player. He's a playmaker, and at times as a quarterback when things aren't going well, you feel like you got to do a little too much, right? You got to overcompensate, and so that's where we had to kind of go through the fire a little bit last year, but that's obviously a big reason why he's made such an improvement this year.
Any questions for Coach virtually?
Hey, Coach. This is Darian Carter with the Greenville News. It looks like sometimes Cade maybe rushes some of his throws when he's an open receiver at times. Just curious, is that true? And if so, how do you kind of coach him to kind of settle down in those moments?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's sometimes it's tough for any quarterback, especially him when he's a kind of a hyperactive person. I mean, that's just his personality, and so when you get some of these things that are open quickly at times, the natural thing as a thrower, as a quarterback, is you feel like you need to rush it to get there, right? It's open right now, I got to get it there right now. And there's times where that is the case, right? You don't have any longer to deliver the football before you get hit. Like sometimes that is the case, and there's other times where you probably have a little bit more time to just make sure and ensure that you're making a good throw and a good decision and all those things. So that's all reps. That's all things that he knows are correctable and things that he can certainly improve on.
Take one or two more for Coach.
What's the best throw he's made this year?
Man, he's made several. I mean, the first big play of the Georgia game to Antonio was elite. That was elite. We've had, I can remember a third down that we hit against Stanford. He threw to TJ Moore on a cross. That was a big boy throw and a big boy catch. He had one last week to TJ on a third down on an end cut, kind of on the minus territory for us against Virginia. That was a big boy throw on a day where he didn't throw it great, and we all know that was a big boy throw and catch. So I can think of a bunch of them, but those are three that are pretty fresh in my mind.
Garrett, your name has come up for the ECU job opening. Any reaction to that?
No, I mean, I was in a rabbit hole. That's why I was a couple minutes late here, doing some red zone and goal line. But no, I mean, I know chatter will happen at times, but man, I'm where my feet are.
Take one more for Coach Finn by hand.
You talk about the big throw in that Georgia game. I think a lot of people after the Georgia game were like, same as last year, nothing's changed. But within the locker room, talking to Dabo, it certainly sounded like you guys kind of came out of that saying, like, I know we didn't click on all of them, but the pieces are here. How much did that mindset sort of open the door to these last 6 games and what you've been able to put together?
It was huge. I mean, yeah, I mean, we just all felt it. We felt it as coaches. We felt it as players, that we certainly left a ton out there. But from a matchup standpoint and just all those kind of things that you can kind of see and feel in games, certainly as a coach, you come away with it in a weird sort of way with some confidence. And I know that doesn't make sense, but that's kind of what we felt. And that's what we felt in that locker room. And I think Coach Sweeney did a great job of articulating that to our players and letting that really sink in. I think that was a big moment and a big key for us, kind of post game with that team. And I thought, like I said, I thought Coach did a really good job of bringing that to life with our players. And then it certainly carried over, into game 2 and game 3, and all of a sudden you start to build true confidence and kind of gain some momentum, as we've seen. So that was, looking back to just that first part of the season, that was a big moment.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Being here.